Hey everyone, I hope everyone has had a great week. It's certainly been a hot week here where I am. I wanted to talk with everybody today about diagnosis and why it's not a good idea to try to self diagnose or to diagnose other people. I hear this a lot from clients who come into therapy. They'll tell me, that they suspect that this person in their life or that person in their life has depression, or they have bipolar disorder, or even ADHD. Not a good idea for a couple of reasons. So the first reason, and I think probably the most important one, it's technically practicing as a licensed professional without having a license, which in most areas is a crime. Um, so in order to make a diagnosis, a doctor or a therapist um, will typically see if certain diagnostic criteria are met. So for instance, with depression, a lot of people don't know this, but there are actually a variety of types of depression. There's bipolar disorder, which is a type of depression. There's persistent depressive disorder, which is a type of depression. There's what's called major depressive disorder, which is what most people are referring to when they refer to depression. Um, so, in order to meet diagnostic criteria for depression, an individual has to have depressed mood more days than not for a period of 2 weeks or more. Um, and it typically will last, even longer than that. So along with depressed mood, it's very common for someone with major depressive disorder um, to have decreased energy, feelings of being lethargic, um, not having the energy they used to have. Um, there's a very pessimistic, kind of negativistic thinking typically. Things will always be this way. They will never get better. Very black and white thinking in a lot of cases. Also, very common for individuals when they're experiencing a depressive episode to have changes in their appetite or their weight. So that can be increase in appetite or weight, or decrease. And when I mean, like, we're talking pretty substantial changes typically. Um, but also there are a number of other symptoms that come along with it, like inability to sleep well, or maybe sleeping too much. Some individuals, when they feel depressed, they'll tell me that they sleep 16 hours a day. Or even thoughts of suicide are very common with major depressive disorder. The danger here in trying to self-diagnose or trying to diagnose someone else is that a lot of mental health conditions share symptoms with other mental health conditions. So, for instance, you can see some of these same kinds of symptoms with persistent depressive disorder, or even with a condition called borderline personality disorder. Um, and the treatments tend to be different. One instance that I hear very commonly, individuals will think that they have ADHD, because they'll tell me, I can't concentrate, I feel restless all the time, and in talking with them, I ask them, when did you first begin to have these symptoms? Oh, I had them just a few months ago. Well, that's typically not ADHD. That might point more in the direction of an anxiety disorder, maybe generalized anxiety. Um, Typically with ADHD, can also have some restlessness, the inability to concentrate or focus, but it's typically first identified in childhood. Very common for individuals who have ADHD to do reckless or impulsive things, to act now and think later. um, and you see some of those same kinds of behaviors with bipolar disorder, for instance, which is a type of depression. And as I said a minute ago, the treatments tend to be different. So you would not, for instance, like you wouldn't give an antidepressant to somebody with ADHD. You wouldn't give ADHD medications, which in a lot of instances tend to be short acting. They tend to be, a lot of the time, stimulant medications are used for that. Well, you wouldn't give that to someone with an anxiety disorder because it might make them even more anxious, having a stimulant. So you really want to talk with a licensed professional about the symptoms that you're having rather than trying to self-diagnose or trying to diagnose someone else. Very, very risky to do that. And I'll just tell you, I remember many years ago, I'm old now, but when I was working on my undergraduate degree, my bachelor's degree in psychology at the University of Texas, I remember one of the classes I took, as a psychology major, I joke sometimes. I say we learned more about experiments with rats and dogs than we did anything else. Well, yeah, you read a lot about that, but I took a course on psychopathology, on mental health conditions. And I remember as an undergraduate, I made the same mistake. I was reading about all these things and I had myself convinced that, oh my gosh, I have all these things. Well, no, because typically they're diagnostic criteria that have to be met. And we typically take those from a publication by the American Psychiatric Association called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which is now in its 5th edition. They recently did a text revision to it. They used to think, for instance, like until the 70s, like homosexuality was actually considered a mental health disorder. One of the ways that they got it removed from the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, was that they were finding that the vast majority of individuals who identified as gay or lesbian or bisexual or transgender, they had mental health difficulties just like anyone else, but in the same proportion. So their sexual orientation, for instance, was not directly impacting their mental health. But I'd certainly encourage you, if you have, if you're experiencing any symptoms, like depressed mood or anxious mood or difficulty concentrating, please resist the temptation. Don't try to self-diagnose based on what you've read online or maybe in a book. But talk to a licensed professional and have them conduct an evaluation with you and kind of discuss with you what symptoms you're having and what diagnosis might be most appropriate. Because as I said before, that's what's going to really dictate what kind of treatment we do. Even in talk therapy, there are different types of talk therapy. So, some types of talk therapy are for specific mental health conditions. And so you wouldn't want to go to a licensed professional and, think you're getting talk therapy that's going to help you with depression and you're really getting a treatment that's for something else. I mean, you really want to let them make that decision, have that discussion together. Be sure to check out my website at briansharpcounseling.com. I've got more information there on my blog. And you can also check me out on Facebook and TikTok as well. I'd love to know what you think about this video. Feel free to leave me some comments below. I'll try to respond to as many as I can. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a like and share it with friends. Until next time, I hope everyone has a great week. Take care.